We be live. Hello, everybody. I'm here with Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So, guys, Anna just sent me a video, and I thought that we have to do a live stream. I mean, she thought we have to do a live stream on it, and I agreed. By the way, Anna, again, let you guys know she's in Israel and she's streaming from Israel. And at any time, she might have to leave because there might be rocket attacks. And just in case she gets up and leaves, that's the reason. So, just want to let you guys know beforehand if that happens. Also, she has a slight internet problem today. So there might be a little bit of a delay in her audio, but that's okay. Just in case sometimes we speak over each other. It's not because I'm being rude. It's just because there's an audio delay and we might not know what we're doing. So I see Soha in the live chat. I see Jack in the live chat. Hi, guys. I see all colors in the live chat. Hi, guys. Oh, Hammers is here. Guys, so yeah, so we have a very short video of a new convert to Islam, as they call themselves, reverts. I It's a short video, but me and Anna both have a lot to say about this video. So I'm just gonna play it, and we will. Well, not this one yet. I will have that ready for you. That's gonna come in handy shortly. That's what I have. Actually, now a lot of people that saw what I shared, they know exactly how I'm going to respond to it. Okay, Soha is saying audio is good. Hammer is saying hello all, and Roman is saying hi. Oh, what is this? This is probably, I know, again, I can't read Hebrew, but I know exactly what this is saying. That's shalom, isn't it? Based on the other things
Yeah,
that is next to
yeah.
it. So Jack is saying hello, shalom, and salam from Finland. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like it. Soho is saying hello, everyone. Halkala is saying morning, fellow. Fellow apes. Oh, that's, I like that. I like that. I like that. Hello, Armin and Anna, and then see the thing sub. All right, so guys, I'm going to play the entirety of this video from beginning to end before we start taking it apart. I think this is a very interesting video because this is a new trend. A lot of Westerners are converting to Islam, and we need to analyze this and see what is happening, and to be able to address it. I think this is good diagnosis. Like, we have to, this is a disease that is spreading in the West, and to be able to address the spread of this disease, we need to understand it. So when people come and tell you in Western countries why they're converting to Islam, we need to take it seriously and we need to analyze it. So I'm glad that Anna is also taking this very seriously. Anna, if you see not just this one, if you see more Westerners converting to Islam, send more of that to me so that we could turn them into streams, so we could basically try to figure out what's happening here and try to maybe reduce the spread of it, or else, or at least spread awareness about how dumb and baseless these reasons are for people converting to Islam. Oh, Zaid is here. Yay, Zaid is saying hello from Jordan. I really love having people like Zaid and Soha, and people. Zaid is, by the way, is Palestinian living in Jordan. So,
Mm.
and yeah, so it's really good to have him here to get his side of story, and like, because his perspective on things are always very interesting. Um. Okay, let me just play this and figure out what she's saying. Okay, so
people always ask me why I reverted to Islam, and I can never give them a solid answer. So I'm going to give you guys 3 reasons why I reverted to Islam. Which, by the way, I think it is very important to preface the fact that my mom was Catholic and my dad was Christian. So I grew up with 2 completely different, not completely different faiths, but they were different faiths enough to get me confused. But anyways, the whole Holy Trinity thing was very complicated, to say the least. Please don't come for me. But to further explain a little bit, how can God be 1 and 3 at the same time? The math ain't mathin'. In Islam, there is only one God and one God only. Allah is one. Monotheistic, relating to or characterized by the belief that there is only one God, period. Moving on to reason number 2 is that the Quran has never been altered. In Catholicism, they would tell us that the reason why that the Bible was constantly being altered and changed is because times are changing. Society is changing, which facts. But at the same time, the fact that it is being altered so often and people are putting their little inputs all the time makes it that much more complicated. And it also loses its credibility. It loses its value. You get what I mean? And the Quran, on the other hand, never been changed. The Quran has been the same ever since it was revealed to us, and to me, that's way more valuable and credible. And with that, I love that the Quran is so open to interpretation. And number 3, it's kind of random, but it is a huge reason as to why I actually loved Islam in the beginning when I first started learning about it. And that is Jannah, heaven. Hear me out. Okay, we have a guest joining us for the rest of this video, but when I was Catholic, I would literally lay at night thinking about the fact that if I went to heaven, I would have to live forever, terrified. Because I feel like they never really explained what heaven was like and how beautiful it would be. But in Islam, they explain Jannah so beautifully and makes you want to go to Jannah. You know what I mean? The fact that we're going to live forever sounds amazing. The fact that the whole reason why we live and come to this dunya is to go to Jannah, and every detail about Jannah. For example, the fact that you could bite an apple and every bite is going to taste different and better every time. Like, that is just amazing. I'm running out of time, but I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope that made sense. I feel like I was all over the place, but you guys get the point. Anyways, love ya.
Okay, so that's a very short video, but I could speak about this video for hours and hours because there's so much there. So, Anna, do you want to go first? Because I want to basically go through it one claim by claim. Should I?
Yeah,
Do you want to get? Yeah, go on.
I want to ask for to hear just sentence after sentence and to comment on
Yes.
each sentence she says, because there is a lot to say about this. There is really literally like endless things that I want to say about this.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do one by one. You're right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let me just play the beginning part.
People always ask me why I reverted to Islam.
So it's the very first sentence. People always ask me why I reverted to Islam. Okay, so I just want people. I know a lot of people who watch our channel already know this. The reason why they say revert and not convert is because Islam teaches you that everybody is born a Muslim. So when somebody converts to Islam, technically they're going back to Islam. So all these Americans, Canadians, Europeans who are converting to Islam, they are being told that, well, when they were born a Muslim, and they, because of society fed them lies and brainwashed them, and that's why they became, I don't know, for example, Christians. And now that they're discovering Islam, they're discovering it again. So that's why they don't call themselves converts, they call themselves reverts. They're coming back to Islam. So that's the reason behind that. Yeah, you're right. It's saying such a narcissistic point of view. Exactly. All right. Yeah, people saying so pretentious. Okay.
Yeah, it's like it's like
Go.
Islam teaches that the society is corrupting like the very newborn babies, and this is why they are not Muslims.
Yeah, exactly. If they were just if the society was not like spreading lies and just let them be, they would be already Muslim by now. Yeah.
People always ask me why I reverted to Islam and I can never give them a solid answer. So I'm gonna give you guys 3 reasons why I reverted to Islam. Which, by the way, I think it is very important to preface the fact that my mom was Catholic and my dad was Christian.
All right, so there, you wanted to say something about that, Madda? I think she means Protestant.
Yeah, I think that maybe she meant to say that one of her parents is Catholic and the other one Protestant, because like Catholic and Christian, Catholic is a part of being Christian, right? It's not a different faith. But maybe I think she meant to say Protestant, probably like Protestant and Catholic.
Yeah, but I noticed there are many. So this is weird for some people. There are Catholics who don't call themselves Christian, who consider, like, I've traveled to some Catholic countries, and I've noticed some people say, I ask them, so you're a Christian? They're like, no, I'm a Catholic. So I don't know why some Catholics consider Christian to mean Protestant. I don't know why that is. I'm like, wait, I say, are you a Christian? You say, no, I'm a Catholic. Wouldn't being a Catholic mean that you're a Christian? Like, they're like, no, I'm a Catholic.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't come from this kind of background, but if anyone can explain this, I've never seen this, but I guess it's maybe they want to differentiate themselves from Protestants in this way. Like,
yeah. But I've come across a lot of people who say, I'm not Christian, I'm Catholic. I've seen that. Like, I haven't seen that in the US that much, but I have seen that, like, traveling around the world, people do say that. I don't know. I was like, I told them, but Catholic is Christian, and they were looking at me like I'm crazy. So I don't know what this is about. Yeah, some people are saying it's just ignorance. I don't know. D is saying I haven't heard of that before. Weird. Yeah. It was weird for me as well. And the weirder thing is, I asked some people when I was traveling the world, like people very, very Catholic, people who are extremely religious, right? And I asked them, I wanted to know them to know how much they know about Christianity. I asked them if they know what the Ten Commandment is, and they didn't even know what I was asking about. But then I would like try to make it simple. I was like, "Can you name me the Trinity?" They were like, "Of course, of course." I was like, "What is the Trinity?" And they said, "The Father, Mother Mary, and Jesus." I was like, "Mother Mary and Jesus," and these are Catholics, church-going Catholics. I like Mother Mary, like, yeah, Mother Mary and Jesus. Like, no, that's not the Trinity.
and like she says also that these are two different faiths, like Catholic and Christian. Like, let's say even that she meant to say Protestant. Okay, I mean, Protestant and Catholics aren't that different. I can't even say this about Judaism and Christianity, that they are that different, like completely different. This was also a little bit weird. I think that she doesn't really know what she's talking about.
I don't know. I think like these words, the way they define them, is different from other people. So she might know what she's talking about. It's just she might be using them differently than we are. So I don't know exactly. Oh, we got Zionist money, guys. We got shekels. Yay! Roy just dropped us 6 shekels. Thank you so much, Roy.
Thank
By the way,
you.
can I just say something to people? The way that shekels is the sign for shekels, I don't know why it looks Mayan to me. I don't know why.
What?
It just looks like Mayan symbols. The way, I don't know, the symbol for shekels. It's just like, with the first time I got it is like, wait, is this? I don't know. Am I the
You
only
know,
one who
when
thinks
I
like the
was
symbol?
when I was
No.
when I was a child, I thought that the symbol for dollars is extremely weird because, like, dollars is
Mm.
starting with a D. Why the symbol is an S?
Hey, that's a good point. Oh, look, I'm not the only one. Somebody agrees with me. Shekels signs looks Mayan. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next sentence.
So I grew up with two completely different, not completely different faiths, but they were different faiths enough to get me confused. But anyways, the whole Holy Trinity thing was very complicated, to say the least. Please don't come.
Oh, you want to say something, Anna? Go on.
Yeah, I mean, she got confused with only having like Catholicism and probably Protestant faiths around. But in Islam, I think Islam is much more confusing than these two, because in Islam, like, you have 4 schools of thought in Sunni Islam, 4 madhabs: the Hanafiya, Malikiya, Shafiya, Hanbaliya. Okay, 4 schools of thought, and in Shia Islam, you have the Shia of the 12 Imams, and also different like smaller sects of Shia. So
Yeah.
I think Islam, like, when someone says Islam just as a broad word, like, it is much more confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about the 4 schools. What about Shiism? What about Ismaili? What about
Yeah.
Ahmadi? Well, what about Druze? Like, so if you think the difference between the Catholic faith and the Protestant faith is confusing, go and figure out what is okay. So within Shia Islam, even, right? What is the difference between the 12er Jafari Isna Ashari version of Shia Islam and other versions of Shia Islam? Go and figure out the difference between the Ismaili faith and the 12 are Shia Islam, right? Maybe figure that out. Go figure out the difference between, oh yeah, Mu'tazilites. What was the difference between, actually, let's get into the Mu'tazilites, because let's see what she found confusing about the Christianity. Oh wow, look at this. We got another super chat from Erkin, this time from Turkey, saying, stay away from Islam. Yes, this is a quote from our very own apostate prophet. So thank you so much. That's a very good advice, the best advice that, our prophets, unlike religious prophets, give a good advice. So Zaid is saying Druze don't consider themselves Muslims, Armin, or at least my Druze friends don't. Yeah, okay, so there's a debate, because that's also why I didn't mention Baha'i, because these are Islamic offshoots, and technically they're not Muslim, but they are a variant of Islam, and Baha'i is also like a variant of Islam, even if it's not Islam. Yeah, so
Yeah,
D is praying to our
Druze
prophet.
also, it came from the Ismailia branch, like of Shia Islam.
Yes,
So
yes,
it's,
exactly.
some consider it Islam, some maybe not. It's a topic for debate. I do think that it's Islam, but it's a topic for debate.
It's a topic for the, yeah. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention, when we mentioned our prophet, we forgot to say peace be upon him. Now we go to hell. We go to atheist hell now. Great. All right, let's continue.
Enough to get me confused. But anyways, the whole Holy Trinity thing was very complicated, to say the least. Please don't come for me. But to further explain a little bit, how can God be 1 and 3 at the same time? The math ain't mathin'. In Islam, there is only one God and one God only. Allah is one. Monotheistic, relating to or characterized by the belief that there is only one God. Period. Moving on to
All right, so that topic, okay? So God is one and only one, and that makes it simple. Very simple, right? Is it really that simple? Because the first Inquisition in Islamic history was over exactly that. And a lot of people were executed and tortured over the complications of exactly that. So if you're finding it simple, I just have to tell you that the earliest scholars of Islamic history did not find that simple enough. And these are people that spend their entire lives, these are the closest people to Muhammad in Islamic scholarship. And these are people that are considered to be the most important founders of how we think about Islam, and people who spend their entire lives studying Islam in their own native tongue, and people that give their lives fighting for their version of Islam. And the concept of Tawheed and Allah being just one was why different caliphs during the Umayyad dynasty decided to execute certain scholars and let other scholars live, and then switch based on their agenda or what they thought was the right answer. I will give you the details of what I'm talking about. Let me finish this point before we go to Anna. So Tawheed in Islam, Tawheed is the most important concept in Islam, the very foundations of what Islam focuses on. And in fact, the way that Islam was diverted away from the Judeo-Christian sect that originally was because of its focus on this concept of Tawheed, the fact that Allah is one, the oneness of Allah, the oneness of God, and the fact that it has no children, and the fact that Jesus was a prophet, not the son of God, or not God himself. This whole Trinity being false was the reason why Islam became a sect, Judeo-Christian sect, that was different from Christianity, and then eventually it became its own religion. So, but again, this was very complicated, because in Islam, it says that the only divine entity in the world is God. Not three, not two, just one. However, Islam also teaches you that the Quran is divine. That makes the whole thing complicated, right? How could the Quran be divine when we are supposed to have one divine entity? So the idea, if you ask Muslims today, the idea is that the Quran itself is the uncreated word of Allah. The uncreated word of Allah means that it existed at all time and all space. It was not created. So there are two things that are uncreated according to Islamic faith. One is Allah, the other one is the Quran. The Quran was not created by Allah. It existed beyond time and space. We cannot say when. It was not revealed to Muhammad. The moment of its creation was not when it was revealed to Muhammad. It was revealed to Muhammad, but it existed before. Even the word before doesn't make any sense because it existed beyond time and space. And that's what the first Inquisition in Islam was all about, because Mu'tazilites argued that is against the concept of Tawheed. So she is now a new revert, and according to the current Islamic faith, the mainstream Islamic understanding is that the Quran is the uncreated word of Allah, which contradicts the concept of Tawheed. This is exactly what the Mu'tazilites were arguing, because now we have two divine entities, which contradicts the very foundation, with the very essence of Islamic understanding, which is we're supposed to have one entity that is divine. So again, this becomes complicated because her understanding, her Islam that she's converting into, contradicts the very concept of Tawheed. And again, you might choose one of these positions over the other one, but don't tell me that it's as simple like, oh, just one thing. She doesn't understand how complicated this is. And again, this is just I'm telling you this, this is a very simple version of it. There's a lot of philosophical infighting within Islam that people have bled for, which kind of suggests that this is a lot more complicated than this. If she's looking for, by the way, simplicity, this is a logical fallacy. Simplicity doesn't mean true. If she is looking for simplicity, the concept of Tawheed is not simple. It is complicated. But overall, it's false to suggest that if something is simple, it is more correct. So are you looking for the truth or are you looking for simplicity? Because they're not the same thing. If you're the scientific understanding that we have of the world, the more you understand how the scientific method gives us a better understanding of how the world operates and what is true, you realize that the truth is actually a lot more complicated. But your mind desires simplicity, so you're attracted to simplicity and you're acting like because it's simple, it is true. Go ahead, Anna.
Yes, I want to add that Muslim sects all around the world, they constantly fight over what Tawheed means. And like, for example, a lot of Muslim sects, they consider Shias of doing shirk, like worshipping several divine entities, because they believe in the imams, in the 12 imams, and because they go to shrines, for example, like the Reza shrine in Iran. So this thing alone, like Tawheed, there is just one God and nothing else, it's not as simple, because like even if you go to a shrine, it might be considered as worship of another entity, and then you are shirking, you are basically you're not worshiping God alone.
Sorry, I muted myself. Okay, so that's exactly true, and I will give you some other complicated things that to think about Islam that makes the whole thing a lot more complicated. So Erkin is saying, how are Allah, Allat, Al-Manat, Al-Uzza, and Allah are one thing? So yeah, these are goes through the evolution of Islam and how there were multiple gods before, and then some of them were removed. So I'm not going to get into a lot of details here, but you guys could look that up. But thank you so much, Erkin, for that super chat. And all colors is saying, I have an evolutionary explanation, maybe. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is an evolution of memes. The whole concept of the gradual change in a religious ideology, whether it's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, it's all an evolutionary process. So this lady, which I don't know her name, some other things to consider about how complicated her faith is, because she's looking for simplicity and she couldn't understand the Trinity, and she's like, oh, God one, Islam, simple, I get it, my mind gets it, so I'm going to go with that. Some other questions to ask yourself about Islam, to see that it actually is not that simple, it's not that easy to explain everything away with Islam, is how could God be all knowing and all powerful at the same time? Because these two things contradict each other, right? If you are all knowing, meaning all knowing of the future as well, not only you're not all powerful, you have no power at all. There's a contradiction between being aware of the future and having choices. Right? A God that is aware of what happens in the future is a God that has no choices, because he has been limited to the only to one option. If you are aware of what's going to happen in the future, that means that there is only one option for you to choose in the future. That means not only you're not all powerful, that means you are limited to what has been determined to happen in the future. That means you are a slave to your knowledge. You are a slave when when the future has been determined. That means you have no choices. No choices means that not only you are not all powerful, you have no will at all. You have you're less. Uh, you have zero power, not infinite power. There's not even in between. So that's something to consider. That the all-knowing aspect of Allah contradicts him being all powerful. Another thing to consider is that God is supposed to be the most merciful entity ever to exist, and yet he burns people forever simply because they don't believe in him. That's a contradiction. That's in the Quran. Torturing people for eternity simply for lack of faith contradicts the God being all merciful. And it's very clear that God does burn people torture people for eternity for simply not having faith. Go on, Anna.
Yeah, and there is also a verse, I'm trying to find it right now, that God chooses whom he guides towards Islam, towards faith. So basically,
Yeah.
it says that some people don't believe because God doesn't want them to believe, like this. And it contradicts everything Islam says, for that, like, if God chooses who would be faithful, who would follow Islam and who wouldn't, then why is he torturing people in hell for not following it?
Yeah, exactly. Again, that contradicts God all being merciful. So if you can't understand the Trinity, Islam has a lot more confusing and insane and stupid teachings that makes no sense at all. So I agree, the whole concept of Trinity is insane, but Islam has its fair share of insane teachings, dumb teachings as well. So don't think that Christianity is alone in that. We got another super chat from All Colors saying, my explanations deals more with in-group, out-group dynamics, but I can't write it on a super chat because I'm broke, so it'll be in the comment section. Okay, guys, if you want to see All Colors analysis, once the stream is over, he or she will have a comment under the video explaining his theory to you guys. Well, thank you so much, All Colors, for that. And guys, please don't, if you are struggling financially, please don't support us financially. Please just like the stream. That will very much be helpful to us. Like and subscribe and hit the bell notification and leave a comment under the video on our YouTube channel, on Atheist Republic's YouTube channel. Once the stream is over, your comments are very, very helpful for us. So please, the only people who are supporting us financially should be people who are completely financially secure. Okay, but thank you so much for that. All right, let's go to the second point. So she has now moving on to reason number 2. See what she has to say.
Reason number 2 is that the Quran has never been altered. In Catholicism, they would tell us that the reason why that the Bible was constantly being altered and changed is because times are changing. Society is changing, which facts. But at the same time, the fact that it is being altered so often and people are putting their little inputs all the time makes it that much more complicated. And it also loses its credibility. It loses its value. You get what I mean? And the Quran, on the other hand, never been changed. The Quran has been the same ever since it was revealed to us. And to me, that's way more valuable and credible. And with that, I love that the Quran is so open to interpretation. And number 3, it's kind of...
All right, so number 3. But go on, Anna, you go first. I have a lot to say about this.
Like, well, first of all, the Quran, it's it's a myth that it hasn't been changed, but let's put it aside. Let's imagine that the Quran is indeed perfect and hasn't been changed since it was written. Okay, now basically God has created or not created. Like right now, most say that the Quran hadn't been created, so the Quran exists. Okay, from the very beginning of the universe, like together with God, they came at the same time. Now, God has to transfer these words to Gabriel. Gabriel has to transfer these words to Muhammad. Muhammad, he can't write. Like this is what Muslims say, that he was an Ummi. So he can't write. He has to. He says all these verses to the people in Medina. The people in Medina, some write, some know, some memorize it. And then only after Muhammad's death, Osman collects all the Quran, like collects parts here, parts there, and here is the Quran. Now, I don't know if you played this game when people line up and tell each other like a word very in a low voice, and you have to pass it down, and then
Whispers.
it comes.
It's called
What?
it's called the game of whispers.
Yeah, the game of whispers, and then it comes at the other end completely distorted. So like
Yeah.
at every stage in this line, the words can be distorted, and especially the Arabic script, the ancient Arabic script, it lacked the diacritical points. So the same word, like several words could be written in exactly the same way. For example, like the word bite and the word bint. The only difference between them is these points, okay? But they mean completely different things. Bite is a home or a house, and bint is a girl. So without these points and with just this eclectic work that Osman did, and of course it was everything done after Muhammad was already dead, like it is already harming a lot of the credibility that the things that are in the Quran are actually existed while Muhammad lived.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, and this game has two names. Chinese Whisper, or the game of telephone. So in English has two names. In Persian, it has a name called Ye Kalak Chel Kalak for people who or Persian speakers who are watching the show. I know a lot of people come from the Persian channel here and watch it. So yes. By the way, I will show you evidence that the Quran has been changed. Okay, I will give you a couple of evidence. But even if the earliest manuscripts of the Quran, even if there was no change from them to the Quran that we have today, we have to understand that the earliest manuscripts that we have from the Quran are after their revelation to Muhammad, and that's what Anna is referring to. There is no way that you could show that what Muhammad was revealed to Muhammad is the exact same words as what eventually was put on the earliest manuscripts, because there you have no evidence. How I challenge every Muslim, even if all the manuscripts of the Quran that we have had, they were exactly the same, which again they're not, how can you prove that what Muhammad received was exactly what was put on the earliest manuscript? There is no way you can show that. You can't even show that what Muhammad received is exactly what he came and told people. I mean, the proof they have that was Muhammad was so honest. Well, how do you know? How do you prove that? But even if he was honest and he said everything exactly as it was revealed to him, how do you know that once Muhammad died, that was eventually what Muhammad said was eventually put on the Osmanic manuscript? You don't have that manuscript. But go on, Anna.
I want just to make it clear that according to Islamic traditions, Muhammad didn't know how to write. Like they are proud of it that Muhammad didn't know how to write. So the only way for the Quran to be written and constructed is that people who were around Muhammad listened to his words and they either memorized them or wrote them somewhere, right? So how can you be sure that they heard everything correctly and they put everything in the correct order? There is no way to know that the people around Muhammad didn't make mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, also somebody Elsas is saying, and to add to Armin, the lack of proper vowels led to two versions with sounds and mean things different. Yeah, the halves. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna get to that, to the halves irritation and the wash irritation. But yeah, I will get to that. Hold on, make sure I have this iteration. Sorry, yeah. So what you're before we get the halves and wash is more of an early recent phenomenon that has happened. We have had many changes in the Quran. So here's the thing: not only, I will show you on the screen, right? Not only the Quran has not remained constant. If you actually study the Islamic history and the history of the Quran, you will see that there was not a single point during the history of Islam where the Quran was not changed. So not only was it changed, it was changed all the time. It was constantly being changed, right? And again, here, let me show you. So this is a book by Daniel Brubaker. So, and you guys should get this book if you're interested in this. It's called the Corrections in Early Quranic Manuscript. And Daniel Brubaker is a very well-known and respected name when it comes to scholarship in early Islamic history, with focusing on the Quran. And he has many examples of the Quran being changed constantly. And these are changes that were done systematically. You could see that certain things were being added with a deliberate purpose of making Qurans changed throughout, the Islamic world, right? So, for example, you can see here the word Allah are being added here. You can see these are clearly additions of the word Allah. And again, I'm trying to show you the additions of word Allah here to the Quran, because there's many examples of editing of the Quran and the Quran being changed. But the reason why I'm picking Allah is because Allah is not something you miss. Right? So this is not the fact that Allah was added many times in the Quran. You could see just 9 examples here, and these are very early Quranic manuscripts. This is not later stuff but because a lot of times when there's an edit, people attribute that to maybe a mistake was made. But the fact that Allah was missed, and you could see many examples of Allah being added. So when I'm saying Allah was missed, means it was not missed. The early version did not have this Allah. There was a deliberate, intentional decision to include Allah here after, because when you are writing a manuscript, the name of God is very unlikely for you to be something that you miss and then have to add it later, especially if it's being done repeatedly. This is not something that was missed and then added later. This is obviously something that was a later decision to make a systematic change throughout the Quranic manuscripts after. And you can see that it's very clear based on the pictures that we have here that these are words that were decided to be added later, right? And then again, you could read this book, by the way. It's a really good book. There's a lot of examples of how which Quranic manuscripts they are, where they're being held, the carbon dating on them, and the analysis of why they were changed. And so it shows you the current version of the Quran, and exactly what you're seeing in the Quran today is basically, and again, the fact that the Quran that you have today, it matches the version that was edited, shows that the moment in time in Islamic history where they decided to include that part and eventually changed all the Qurans that we have today. And again, we have other pictures like you can see here Oh, you can see some erasure. Like you can see parts of the Quran that were removed, right? And you can see in the Quranic today the effect. You can see stuff that was edited in the corner, and then there's a lot of examples. You can see stuff that were added later, and then shows how your Quran today changed because of those edits. Again, you can see so many. And again, this book analyzes each one of these edits in great detail. If you want to go and read it, you can see how this word was added here. And again, you can see in the Quran today how that change was. Yeah, okay. See, you can see these are obvious edits. And again, these are all analyzed by experts, and there are many examples. This is not just one or two examples. There are many examples. Go on, Anna. You want to mention something?
She also said that unlike the Quran, which hadn't been changed, which we already know that is not true, the Bible was changed a lot, and because times change, it is constantly changing. Something like this. She said something like this, and like I don't know about the New Testament to be sure, but the Old Testament, I think it hadn't been changed like for 1,500 years, something like this, and
Oh no,
like
it
the
was
only
changed.
changes. No,
No, it was changed.
well,
Yeah.
changed. Okay,
Yeah.
but anyways, like what she means is probably just the translations. Like nothing is changing so much, so often. Like only the translations change very often, but the translations is, of course, it has to change.
Yeah, well, we're not going to get into that because all of these books were constantly being changed. But to be fair, the Quran hasn't changed much. That is true. The Quran is actually very surprisingly consistent throughout Islamic history, but that's not good enough.
It doesn't mean it is true and holy.
Okay, let me finish my point. Okay, so the Quran has been a very consistent book throughout Islamic history, right? But that makes it worse for Islam. Let me explain why. So the fact that the Quran has remained very consistent throughout history seems like it's for a lot of people who are not familiar with what Islam teaches, seems to be verifying Islamic teaching. But the point is that the word very, not completely. So when Islamic scholars, secular Islamic scholars, then come and tell you that the Quran has not changed much throughout its history, that's a bigger attack on Islamic teaching than if you said that it's changed a large part of it was changed. You know why? Because it shows that the intention is not to be anti-Islamic, but still acknowledging changes. Because Islam doesn't change you, that doesn't teach you that the Quran has changed very little. Islam teaches you that the Quran has not changed at all. So when you come and say that the Quran has been very consistent, but don't say that the Quran has remained completely consistent, that is against the Islamic teaching, because the Quran teaches you that the Quran has not changed at all. But these examples that I'm showing you, there are very small differences. Like you can see that the Quran has changed. It's not a lot. Like the main part of the text throughout Islamic history has stayed relatively the same. But the fact that we even have a lot of minor changes completely invalidates the teaching that the Quran has remained consistent throughout Islamic history. Do you know what I'm saying? If the scholars, but basically this is what I'm saying. If the scholars came out and said that the Quran has been 90% of the Quran has changed and it's all up like 50%, 40% of it, then the Muslims would completely dismiss that, like, oh, you're just anti-Islamic. But given that the scholars are saying like, oh my God, this is very surprising. This book has remained very much the same, but there are a lot of minor changes. That is worse, because now Muslims cannot say like, oh, these people are just anti-Islamic, because they're showing you how impressed they are by the book being so consistent. So obviously they're not as anti-Islamic, but at the same time they're acknowledging that there has been changes. So that becomes a much more destructive, more challenging for Muslims to dismiss. Do you understand what I'm saying, Anna? Am I making
Yeah,
it
I understand
clear?
you, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also want to add that Muslims treat it almost like it's a miracle that the Quran is so consistent
yes.
and it hadn't been changed. But you can say it about many old manuscripts that are very consistent. Like
Mm.
you can say about the Shahnameh, it is like existing for 1,000 years, but it's not holy.
Yeah, but the Shahnameh has changed as well. Maybe like the Shakespeare, maybe. Yeah, but I understand that even you're right. Even if it was consistent, which is not, that would not be a miracle. That would not be a miracle.
Exactly.
Yes. So let me actually show you. So for people who don't believe me that the Quran has changed, right? You could go actually get books right now. There are 7 different versions of the Quran today. What, like, not, you don't even have to go back in history. The 2 most famous versions of the Quran being Hafs and Warsh, right? So for example, if you go in Iran and buy a Quran, you're going to get the Hafs version of the Quran. And if you go and get a Quran in Egypt or anywhere in North Africa, you're going to buy a Warsh version of the Quran. And there are differences. And a lot of Muslims will tell you, oh, the differences are very small and they're just different pronunciations. The Quran is the same thing, but it's just a pronunciation that is different. And obviously, when you take your pictures of the different Quran, guys, and don't believe me, just go check these things. You could go and do some research between the Qurans that we have today, and you can see we have the 2 most famous ones are Hafs and Warsh, and there are differences. And like you can see in the picture, it's not just a different pronunciation. Obviously, the letters are different. Like, I have a lot of examples. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, let me go from. Oh, I wish I had. No, not this one. I wish I had some from the very first surah 1, but it's okay. I have enough examples to show you. So, for example, you can see Taguluna and Yaguluna. This is not a difference between pronunciation. This has different meanings, right? You say and they say. So the Quran that you buy in Iran would say you say. The Quran that you buy in North Africa would say they say. That's the difference in meaning. That's not just a difference in pronunciation, right? But okay, you're okay. And there are a lot of examples here, right? You could go and I will just quickly go over them, right? Like this. There are hundreds of examples, differences between the Hafs version of the Quran and the Warsh version of Quran. And then when you show Muslims that there are differences between, they are not just different in pronunciation, but the meaning even changes. Some of them will say that, okay, well, that would not change the teaching. The teaching will be the same, even if there are differences between Hafs and Warsh versions of the Quran. At the end of the day, it's coming to the same meaning, right? I remember when Muslims say that, they are admitting that there are different Qurans, but it doesn't matter that much. So that whole claim that the Quran has not changed will go completely out the window. But let me find you an example, because I have a lot of example, but I want to show you an example where even the teaching of the Quran, the commandment of Quran will change as well. So we have here an example, an ayah, a verse in the Quran from Hafs, and another one in Warsh, which one of them says miskinen, and the other one it says masakina. Right? So the first one, the Hafs version of the Quran, says one poor person, and the Warsh version of the Quran says many poor men. So again, not just the difference in pronunciation, the meaning is difference between the Hafs version of the Quran and Warsh version of the Quran. So what are the implication of this? Is this just basically doesn't change much? It doesn't really matter? The differences are slight? Well, let's see the translation. So the Hafs version of the Quran, and this is Surah Baqarah, Ayah 184. So Surah chapter 2, verse number 184 says, and for those who can fast with difficulty, they have to feed one poor person. So basically, the Quran is teaching you that if you're supposed to fast, for example, during Ramadan, but if it's difficult for you and you can't fast, instead of fasting, you can feed a poor person. Right, but if you look at the Warsh version of the Quran, it says, and for those who can fast with difficulty, may affect a redemption by feeding poor men. So they have to feed multiple poor people, not just one. So again, you can see this is a very significant, because you don't know what the commandment of Allah is. So if you're unable to fast, am I supposed to feed one poor person instead of fasting, or a couple of poor men instead of fasting? So the difference is significant enough for the commandment of Allah to change. Again, then a Muslim, I've heard all the defense of this. The defense for this is, a Muslim will say that, okay, why don't you just feed a couple of poor person instead of one, just so you're safe? Again, I'm like, yes, you're right. But remember, by saying that, you have now admitted that we have multiple Qurans. So you're right. You could be safe and just feed multiple poor men. But by acknowledging that as a remedy, you are admitting that we don't have one version of the Quran. There you go.
And
go on, Anna.
Another thing that I heard from Muslims, they say the words in these two versions are the same, but these are different readings. So no, I want to add here, with Semitic languages, there is a slight problem that sometimes the same, you can use the same letters in order to write multiple different words, and the only difference is like those how you pronounce them. So for example, the word tseva in Hebrew, it means color, but tsava, which is written exactly the same with exactly the same letters, means painted, okay? And tsaba means a painter. So it can mean multiple words. Of course, these are related words, but it has three different meanings, just one word from three letters, okay? Just one word can mean several things. So without these marks of how you read it, sometimes you can understand totally different meanings. And this is important. It's not just reading. These marks are meaningful, how you read it. Okay?
Yes, it's
and
called
this exists
both
in Arabic and in Hebrew. Both in Arabic and in Hebrew, this exists. So yeah, harakat.
Yes, it's called the harakat, or in English they call them I think they call the dialectic marks, right? So the dialectic marks. And again, without these dots and these harakats, you could make the Quran to sing you whatever story you want. It's very easy to basically get many different meanings out of the Quran. The Quran will become very, very flexible, which actually brings us to her last point, right? Let me bring her back. Let me go back to her last point, because the last point was very interesting, because it's like the Quran has not changed. And then at the same time, she came out and said she enjoys the fact that you could get many different interpretations out of it. So let's listen to this.
To us. And to me, that's way more valuable and credible. And with that, I love that the Quran is so open to interpretation.
All right, so here's the thing. That would defeat the purpose. Even if the Quran has not changed at all, let me finish this point, because it's very important. I wanted to make this point for a while. Let's say the Quran had not changed at all, which I showed you that the Quran has changed, and it has changed all the time. There was not a time in Islamic history that the Quran has not changed. It always has changed. But let's imagine that it had not changed at all. But what would be the point if it's open to interpretation? Then what would be the point of it not changing? Because if the interpretation can change, then in effect the Quran is changing. I mean, this is what they have done. They come up with a made up miracle that the Quran has not changed, and by having different interpretations that anybody could come up with, they have already made the Quran as flexible as a book that changes all the time, depending on what people need, depending on what the rulers and the politicians need at the time. Do you understand what I'm saying? This will make the Quran basically changing, even if the words of it were not changing.
Yeah, I think that the fact that you can interpret the Quran in so many different ways actually harms its credibility gravely. Yes. And whoever tried to read the Quran, even tried, not even finished it, he immediately notices how incoherent and incomprehensible the text is, how unclear it is, with no timeline whatsoever. And many of the surahs, you can't understand them without reading several tafsirs, without reading the explanations. And saying about this that you actually love it, no, it adds to the it adds to the opposite argument that the Quran isn't holy. Because, like, imagine, okay, if I was God, okay, and I had to send humanity one last message, like one last book that they should follow it, I would definitely not send it in such an incomprehensible language. I would not send it in such an incoherent way, because like there is no timeline, unlike the Bible, where at least you kind of can follow who is going where and what is the chronology of the things. In the Quran there is no chronology. Like there can be surahs totally unrelated to each other. There can be even unchronological things within one surah, and no one knows why one surah came before the other one. And I mean, if I had to send one message to humanity as a god, I definitely wouldn't make it in the form of the Quran. Like, it can be just not understood by so many people that it's better not to send it, because anyone can just interpret it as he wishes.
Yeah. Exactly. So actually, a lot of people are making these exact points as Anna is making, which are very good points. Spacely is saying, if it's a thing people base laws on, it shouldn't be very open to interpretation. Exactly. And then Hammers is saying it can't be simple and unchanged, but also open to interpretation. That makes my head explode. Exactly. And Space Leah is saying multiple interpretations means a muddy message, which means Allah was bad at his job to deliver his message. Exactly. And then Seed is saying something that is supposed to be objectively true shouldn't have to be left up to interpretation. Exactly. These are very good points. They are saying the fact that you can change many interpretations means Allah, failed at delivering. I think I read that one. Failed at delivering his message. And then Darko is saying unchanged but open to interpretation. LOL. And here's another one. Zaid is saying, imagine if a country's constitution or law was open to interpretation. It would be chaos. But the Quran that sets rules for life is open to interpretation? Question mark. Exactly.
I also want to add, sometimes the Quran even contradicts itself. So the Muslims, they invented the naskh and mansukh concept, that verses that got revealed afterwards, that got revealed later, they are the ones that are correct, and the verses that were revealed before are incorrect. So you can read like two verses, like one from the 4th surah and one from the 20th surah, and it doesn't mean that the 20th surah is later. No, you should check the tafsirs. Okay, check if the 4th surah, if this verse was revealed before or after, because there is no chronology in the surahs. So after you check this, okay, like according to stories and traditions that are told about Muhammad, only afterwards you can understand which is the correct verse and which one is incorrect verse, like which is the last ruling about this matter.
Good point. And also, by the way, the fact that the Quran requires tafsir or commentary for you to understand it means that the Quran is not complete. If the Quran was complete, it would not require all this interpretation and all this analysis. And if it was clear, as the Quran claims that it's very clear, but it's obviously not, or if it needs all this analysis. But yeah, go on.
Like, for example, if you look at the verses that say how to pray, how to like how many times should you pray, it isn't very clear in the Quran alone that you should pray 5 times a day, for example. And this information is gathered from hadiths, from oral transmissions. So it is already like on one of the most important issues. Me, as an outsider reading the Quran, I can think that you should pray 3 times. Like it is not written very, very coherently, very clearly that you should pray 5 times. This information is gathered from hadiths. The fact that you need hadiths in order to clarify how to act according to Islam is already harming the credibility of Islam. That this information isn't written in the most important book.
Yes. Oh, we got 2 super chats from Sid, which we should read before we get back to the video. Sid is saying, white female converts are prized by da'wah organizations that are used for promoting Islam. I have seen testimonials where they portray these women leaving Western hedonistic lifestyles to become hijabs. Yes, nothing is a bigger prize for all of these Islamic organizations than a white woman to convert into Islam. They fucking love that. They do. They I think they have a fetish for it, actually.
Yeah, I actually feel it. Like I feel it myself whenever I tell people that I'm learning Arabic or trying to learn like some surahs in the Quran. They are like, oh wow, we're so excited, and they are really, they want me to convert to Islam. They really wish for it. They have this weird obsession with white women, especially with blue eyes, like the most Western look.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, if you look at the channel that promotes these, the fact that this video, the fact that she is white and she has colored eyes made this the most popular video that they have. So they have it's a YouTube channel, Journey to Islam, and they have a lot of videos of people converting to Islam, and this one had the highest views and the most celebrated the most because, again, she's white and because she has blue colored eyes. We have white men converting there. Again, white men is also good. They like that as well. Colored woman is also they celebrate that as well. But if it's white and if it's woman and if she's pretty and if she has colored eyes, then that's just everything that they could ever dream of.
I think that Armin is trying to convince me to convert to Islam, so I would become famous like these women.
No, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Yes, and Sid is saying Quran is absolute rubbish from beginning to end. It seems as if it was put together under a strict timeline order. That is why it is so badly arranged. Well, and one thing you have to understand about the Quran is that the Quran is not one book. The Quran was different books stitched together. So if you look at early evidences of how the Quran was referred to during the early periods of when Islam was shaping originally, throughout the evolution, there was no book called the Quran. When back at that time, Islam teaches you that they were Muslim, but back then they were not Muslim. They had a different. There was a earlier version of what eventually became Islam. They had different books that they referred to, the book of the cow or the book of the spider. So there was no Quran. These were like different books that were now eventually became chapters of the Quran, just kind of like the Bible, where each of the Gospels were their own separate books, or there were letters. or like the Old Testament, which these were different books. Eventually, they were put together. So just like the Old Testament is a library more than a book, or the New Testament is a library more than a book, the Quran was also more of different kind of books that were stitched together. That's why it's hard to make sense of it if you look at it as one book, but it makes more sense if you look at it as separate books that eventually were compiled. All right, so let's look at her third reason.
And number 3, it's kind of random, but it is a huge reason as to why I actually loved Islam in the beginning when I first started learning about it. And that is Jannah, heaven. Hear me out. Okay, we have a guest joining us for the rest of this video, but when I was Catholic, I would literally lay at night thinking about the fact that if I went to heaven, I would have to live forever, terrified. Because I feel like they never really explained what heaven was like and how beautiful it would be. But in Islam, they explain Jannah so beautifully and makes you want to go to Jannah. You know what I mean? The fact that we're going to live forever sounds amazing.
Oh, I forgot to mention this. We should go back. Jannah means heaven. So, guys, like, did she say that already? That Jannah means was it clear? Okay.
Thinking about the fact that
because she's talking about how heaven is explained clearly in Islam and not in her faith before.
if I went to heaven, I would have to live forever, terrified. Because I feel like they never really explained what heaven was like and how beautiful it would be. But in Islam, they explain Jannah so beautifully and makes you want to go to Jannah. You know what I mean? The fact that we're going to live forever sounds amazing. The fact that the whole reason why we live and come to this dunya is to go to Jannah.
Dunya means world. Okay, so Jannah means heaven. Akhirah means afterlife. Dunya means this life, this world.
And every detail about Jannah, for example, the fact that you could bite an apple and every bite is going to taste different and better every time, like that is just amazing. I'm running out of time, but I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope that made sense. I feel like I was all over the place, but you guys get the point. Anyways, love ya.
So what do you think about the last one? Because I have a lot of points.
Well, I think maybe it's a good idea that you start, but like she also contradicts herself a little bit. Like she says that living forever in heaven in Christianity is terrifying, but living forever in Islam is not terrifying. This is
because she's saying because she says like living. I don't know what's going to happen. She says the reason why she says that living forever in Islam is not terrifying is because at least in Islam they tell me what that's going to be like. Like in Christianity, they tell you that you're going to live forever in heaven, and I have no idea what that's going to be like. So living forever in a situation where I don't know what it's going to be like is terrifying. So in Islam, because it paints me a more clear picture of how that's going to be like, I am now okay with it. So that's her point.
Like, I think that I'm not very familiar with heaven in Christianity, but in Judaism, unlike Islam, Judaism makes a point that basically the afterlife is that people who were good people in this life, the pleasures that they are going to have in the afterlife are mostly pleasures for the soul, not physical pleasures. This is at least what I heard from Jews, that you are not going like to bite apples and eat apples. No, but just being content with your soul. This is what I heard in Judaism.
Well, this is what Christianity teaches as well. And this is Judaism being affected by Christianity. Even though Christianity came from Judaism, later modern Judaism has been affected by Christian teachings because Judaism itself inherently didn't have much of an afterlife. Okay. So it doesn't like within the Jewish scripture, you don't have heaven and hell. I mean, later Jewish thought was impacted by Zoroastrianism. So they had some understanding of an afterlife, but it wasn't very well developed until it became Christianity. And now in much later times, Christian thought went back to Judaism, and they now have. But yeah, you learn basically the same thing in Christianity, that it's not explained. Your afterlife, heaven is not explained in a way that you're supposed to have physical pleasures. You're not having sex. You're not enjoying food, and that's why, for a lot of Muslims, their heaven is a lot more relatable because they can relate to having, sex, amazing food. They could they could feel that, or so it's hard to relate with the Christian heaven.
I don't know.
But
I
again, I
think
don't know.
that
Yeah.
it would be quite
Yeah.
boring eventually just to eat food and have sex for eternity, like just living with no purpose for forever, just
Well, I
existing.
mean, so the Islamic understanding is that you think that the most fun you're gonna have is eating food and having sex, but the most fun you're gonna have is worshiping Allah, because that would be the greatest pleasure that you're gonna have in heaven. And you might think that's not that much of a pleasure, is because you don't understand. When you go to heaven, you understand how joyful that would be. So again, that's an Islamic answer. But going to her answers, trying to respond to her. This is, I was going to say this, but again, Troel beat me to it in the live chat. This would be an argument from wishful thinking, right? So she's saying these are, again, remember, these are her reasons for converting to Islam. And she's describing how more beautiful and pleasurable Islamic heaven is, and that's why she's choosing Islam. This is as if reality bends to our wishes. So she's choosing her belief not based on what belief matches reality. She's choosing her belief based on what she desires. Again, reality there's no necessity for it to match what we want. So saying that I have this belief because I like this version of reality is as if reality cares about what you want, which is again argument from wishful thinking. Why is the truth at all had to be correlated at all to what you desire for reality to be? It makes absolutely no sense. So that's the first point. Also, it's amazing that she mentions eating apple in heaven, because the main pleasure that takes center stage in Islam and in heaven, which is constantly is mentioned as how amazing heaven is going to be, is sex. You have sex slaves, angels as sex slaves there. And the problem for her is mentioning that is embarrassing for Islam. But also the problem is that is a reward that the Quran describes for men. There are no such rewards described for women. There are pretty boys in heaven, angels that are supposed to have very, very beautiful eyes to serve you. But a lot of people think that, okay, so that are those for women, but no, those are also for men. The little boys in the Quran are also for men. So you have to understand that homosexuality is a sin in this world, just like drinking wine is a sin in this world. But when you go to heaven, you can drink wine. It's not a sin in heaven. So homosexuality also, like a lot of Muslims are bi or gay, and Islam understood that, and it wanted to make sure that you understand that even though you're not supposed to do that here, you could do all of that when you die in heaven. So that reward of pretty little boys for heaven is also a promise to men, not a promise to women. And the Quran is very clear about that. Go on, Anna.
I have a question. Does the Quran even mention what women would get in heaven?
No.
Like, I don't remember a verse talking specifically about women in heaven.
No. The Quran is a book written for men. Yes. And also another thing about sex in paradise, which I was going to mention, which Zayd is responding to, is that she wants her husband to have sex with huris. That's Jannah. Yeah, exactly. So you have to understand that as a woman, you have to understand that if you go to heaven, because remember, Muhammad promised that most women are going to go to hell. That's what Muhammad mentions in the Hadith. So women are inherently evil, apparently, many of them, and that's why the vast majority of them are going to. Muhammad makes it very clear that hell is filled with women. But if you are one of those few lucky women who gets to go to heaven, you have to understand that your husband will be constantly having sex with huris, which is angels, sex slave angels, basically, and you have to witness that. And a lot of people, a lot of Muslims mention that, okay, but don't worry, your husband also is with you and those huris or those angels, and you are going to be, those are just like sex slaves. You're going to be his queen in heaven, right? But here's the thing. Here's something that a lot of Muslims have a hard time answering. Whose queen are you going to be in heaven if your husband died and then you remarried? So when you go to heaven, if you had two husbands, because you remarried after your husband died, this is a very serious question. I don't know if people understand. This has been a topic in Islam that constantly resurfaces. Women constantly ask that, like, okay, what happens? Which in heaven? Who do I go to? Who am I going to be matched with? Because women don't get sex slaves like men do. So they are the only person they're going to be with in heaven is their husband, the husband that they had while they were living. But if they had two husbands, who are they going to be with? That's a question that hasn't been answered. Go on,
Armin,
Anna.
I think maybe the answer to this is that it is so unlikely that both she and her two husbands make it to heaven that
Yes.
maybe there isn't an answer. Like, it's very hard to get to heaven in Islam.
Yes, exactly. You're right. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about that. You probably are not going to go to heaven anyways. You're going to burn in hell, you woman. Another point is she talks about every apple that you bite is going to be more delicious than the other one. And that's how amazing how Islam teaches you that. Okay, well, I have a question. Where in Islam does it teach you that? Where did you get that from? Because it's not in the Quran. Like, there's no description of apples being delicious. So again, she talks about how Islam is consistent, but again, these are all made up. There's nothing within the Quran that teaches you that every apple is going to be more delicious than the other one. That's not in the Quran. So I don't know what she's talking about. Again, your religion is very flexible, as you could just come and add stuff to it. You act like your Quran is constant, but your religion is not constant. People are just coming up and adding descriptions on how heaven is going to be like, and you just accept it, even though it's not part of your Islamic scripture. I just wanted to show you how up in the air and flexible their religion is. Yeah. Jean is asking a very important question. Do lesbian women get sex slaves? Maybe this is the way they don't care. I don't know. It doesn't teach. It doesn't clarify.
Lesbians are sinning, so they won't get to heaven. Lesbians are sinning.
Yes. Well, not necessarily. No. Lesbians. No. If you are a lesbian there's two ways lesbians can get into heaven. All right. Maybe you're a lesbian that want to have sex with women, but you know that's a sin, so you never had sex with women. So not only you're not going to go to hell, you are actually going to go. You are better. You are actually better off, because even though God made your life more challenging, you still managed to pass the test, even though you were given a harder test. So you being a lesbian gave you a better opportunity to get into a better part of heaven, right? So that's one way you could get to heaven as a lesbian, because you didn't have sex with any woman, even though you badly wanted to. But another way is that maybe you did sleep with a woman, but then you did tawbah. You asked for forgiveness, you repented, and you're like, God, forgive me, and now you're in heaven. There you go. So see? Don't you believe God? Isn't God so merciful? But yeah, that's actually this. A lot of people don't understand this. Islam actually teaches you that being gay and lesbian is a blessing. It's not a curse. It's a blessing, because God has made your life more difficult, and your life being more difficult is an opportunity, because God makes the people He loves. When God wants to curse somebody, He makes their life easy, because a good dunya, having a good life, is more likely to steer you away from God. But a difficult life makes you more opportunities to get close to God. So by being gay or lesbian, your life is more difficult, and you have more ways, more opportunities to teach God that you have faith in Him, and that you pass this test. So you should see it as a blessing that you want to have sex with the same sex and you can't, because you have more ways to prove God that you love him. Sheikh Armin, exactly. People are saying Sheikh Armin.
Yeah. By the way, I'm trying to find maybe in the hadiths things about biting an apple, and every time it is more amazing than the last time, and I can't find it. If you can find it, maybe it can be interesting. But yeah, I don't know such a hadith. So
yes, well, I know it's not in the Quran for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Erkin just gave us a super chat saying Quran means I don't know even how to pronounce that.
Lectionary.
Well, okay, the Quran is what? Yeah, Quran, I know the Quran. Yes,
like
reciting, to cite.
reciting or like to read also. Like in Hebrew, we have the same root. So
I think, yeah, and I think Erkin, what he's saying, that also means like liturgy, like a prayer book. The Quran was meant to be, this is what I understand, okay? The Quran was meant not to be a revelation originally. It was meant to be a prayer. It was a Christian prayer book that eventually morphed into a revelation from God. So, and that's why the Quran, which means reciting, that's where that comes from. Anyways, I think that's what Erkin is referring to as well. Anyways, guys, we spent an hour and 20 minutes reviewing a 2-minute video. 2-minute video. We spent an hour and 20 minutes to analyze the hell out of it. So I think that deserves a like. Make sure you like this video on YouTube, because that's what we do here. This is the level of analysis we put into a 2-minute video. Right. So guys, again, seriously, do like the video. I'm not joking. Like the video. We need your likes to make sure our videos get more views, and we need you to also leave a comment after the stream is over on YouTube. And guys, if you're watching this on Twitter or on Facebook or on Twitch, make sure you hop over on YouTube and subscribe to our The Atheist Republic YouTube channel. And also, don't just subscribe, hit the bell notification, because that will tell you when we're going live. The subscribe button will not tell you all the time that we're live. It's the bell notification that will tell you that. So make sure you hit that. And also, do recommend the Atheist Republic YouTube channel to other people. Your recommendations, our channel is now growing faster than before. It's because I think you guys are telling people that they need to come and subscribe to our channel. So please keep doing that. Any last words, Anna?
I just wanted to say that I really enjoy doing these videos of extremely ignorant people converting to Islam. So I really want to do it more. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, guys. So see you again. We're gonna do more of these. Also in the comments, like, give us recommendations of like videos, links, or stuff, like tweets that you want us to, me and Anna, to respond to. So give us that as well. Anna is really good at going and finding these kind of videos that for us to respond to. But Anna, make sure you look into the comments and see what people are saying. So maybe you find some good recommendations as well. People are saying, is Anna on Discord? Yes, Anna is on Discord. She comes to the Persian Discord server of Atheist Republic. But Anna, maybe at some point we will also go to the English Discord server of Atheist Republic as well. But that's something that we could talk about later. All right, guys. Bye. Till next time.